Life moves pretty fast. You don't stop and look around once in a while, you could miss it.
All right, so we've been talking about how to have the best summer ever. This is our third of our 4-part series, and we've talked about bucket lists. We've talked about rules that you have to break in the summer to have a good summer. This episode, we want to talk a little bit about one of the advantages of summer. If you take advantage of it, is it can have a little bit of a slower pace. And really, that is another big key to not just summer, but to life in general. And Kim and I we were kind of talking about this phenomenon quite a bit. And you made an interesting point about how much effort we put on our bodies compared to our spirit, our soul, right?
Yeah, especially if you are scrolling any sort of social media or any sort of media. Everyone's trying to promote weight loss and obviously there's all sorts of Botox and all these things, for your hair,
eat
and
right,
makeup, and
sleep well. Yeah,
how
do
you look? Right? Your bodies are definitely, and we all can appreciate the good effects of having a healthy body. That's important.
Down with healthy bodies.
No, that's not what the show's about tonight. But my point is, we obviously spend so much time, with our bodies and then our minds. Even, thank goodness, we're talking more about that in the last
mental health
in the last few decades of just being more aware of our mental health and how important that is. But not a lot of people talk about the soul. And in fact, I think it's kind of controversial, which is kind of funny to me. I told Jason this morning when we were kind of hashing through some of this, maybe it's more comfortable for people to say spirit. I don't know, maybe soul sounds too religious. It's an interesting conversation, but I will say this, that, I had the privilege of being able to be by my dad's side shortly after he passed away, and there was something missing, like his body was there. And if you've ever, been near someone you love that's no longer living, it's undeniable that something is gone.
Yeah, even at like a wake, if there's an open casket or whatever, it's like, oh yeah, that's the person I know, but
their
something's
spirit
missing.
is gone, their soul is gone. So so it's just kind of like, okay, if that's such a significant part of who we are, which how could it not be? How could it not be like everything? Because when it's gone, right? Then we need to spend a little time on that. So that's kind of what we're going to talk about tonight. And Jason had a really cool quote. Is it too serious?
Yeah, no, this is good. I love this quote. I've loved it for a long time, and I can relate to it quite a bit. From Blaise Pascal, he says, "All of humanity's problems stem from man's inability to sit quietly in a room alone." And we talk a little bit about mental health, and I think the soul side of thing is with that. When I just see there's so much angst in the world, and there's so much fear, and I think just busyness.
Yeah.
It feels like everyone is claiming to be undiagnosed ADHD, right? I think that's just our society. We just cannot sit still. And one of the things that I think Blaise Pascal was getting at is that the inability to just be quiet and sit still, then we're left with our mind. We're left with our thoughts. We're left with choices we're making in our life. We're left with the idea of life and death. And are we living a good life? Are we doing all that we can? Would we be happy if this was our last day? And those are some scary, big things to think about and ponder and consider. So it's just a lot easier to just go watch Netflix again and binge that for a while, or doom scroll on our phones, or any of these sorts of things that we just can't sit still in the quiet.
Yeah. And so that busy factor, and many of you guys know I wore my little Miss Wonder Hunter shirt today because many of you guys know my story of where the Wonder Hunt journey began, and that was in this period of very busy parenting, right? 3 kids under 5 or 5 and under, and there was just a lot of reactionary living, which I think many of us have those kind of seasons where you're in a reactionary season of life. And, that busyness that is so haunting day after day can really catch up with you. And so that's where Wonder Hunt happened for me. In fact, this picture came up on our digital frame the other day, and I'm like, that was the start of Wonder Hunt, you guys. That's the picture. Because it really is like that walk out in the woods that just kind of changed it, and it reminded me of what I was missing. And sometimes, for me, a lot that is nature. A lot of times will do that for me. It just instantly slows me down because it kind of connects to some of my slow seasons of living as a child, which is a lot of it was outside playing and swinging on my swing set and watching the clouds and laying in the grass and doing all these like very basic natural things that connect to nature. So that's what really clued me in that I was missing something. And then thank goodness we had a conversation at that time period of our marriage, and was like, you need to get out for more walks. You need to get out there and just, kind of take that time for yourself. And that was the start of a lot of things, which is really cool to look back on. How it fed my soul, and then it led to taking pictures and finding beauty, which led more to nourishment of my soul and just healing of like who I wasn't for a long time, just because of all the busy being. And I think we all need some healing. I talked a lot about that in our Hearts 101 course. But there's definitely a scary aspect to some of this, right? Because as soon as you get quiet, maybe you start to hear things that you need to work on, or you start to hear whispers of, maybe some uncomfortable thoughts. And that's
regrets.
Right.
Maybe some grief, sadness, right? Maybe
some of the things you've been so busy trying, not necessarily avoiding overtly, but sometimes life just kind of lets you avoid things. So that's part of it.
Yeah, I think. Well, that's that avoidance, the busyness. We're seeking peace, right? And so we're off looking for it in external validation, pleasure, distraction, and it's basically contributing to a lot of our unhappiness and even the conflicts that we have in our relationships and in the world. Like if you just take a moment to spend some time thinking about a situation that's maybe difficult before you go into difficult conversation with someone, rather than just, act right off the handle, fly off the handle, just, knee-jerk reactions, which of course is what social media is all day long, is like people's hot takes and my comment is going to change your mind, and it just goes back and forth and back and forth. And of course that's part of the sadness is that the social media feeds and the algorithms are designed to get us to be getting those dopamine hits, right? And so last week we talked about being bored and the value of being bored, especially in the summertime. And I think that's part of it, is we cannot allow ourselves to be bored. That noise, that inability to sit quietly is scary. But I'm telling you, like if you're missing that piece, if you feel like you're a little drifting, if you're unsettled, this is a big step, and it's like requires little baby steps to work up to things. But I'm reminded of that famous line, like we are human beings, not human doings, and we need to just spend some time just being, right? So I would say one of the biggest game changers for us, and I did not even realize that really the date of this. Kim brought it up the other day. There's a couple different terms for this. So there's an author we like quite a bit named Matthew Kelly, and he has a thing called the classroom of silence. That when you allow yourself to be silent and sit there, especially if you're in the presence of God and the Holy Spirit, you will be taught. You will be given lessons and things to work on and things to do better. One of the catalysts for us was a book called Miracle Morning by Hal Elrod. And I got to tell you, I'm one of those people that was never, ever, ever, ever a morning person. I was always the person who'd stay up late by himself working on artwork. Night owl. Yeah. Would stay up till 1, 2 in the morning or whatever. And then for whatever reason, that book, it inspired me to like give it a try. This to have like morning time, so I'd get up a little bit earlier. And when did you say we did it? September?
August of 2019.
2019.
Which is great timing with 2020. We didn't even know it.
Yeah.
But
and you attribute this is a game changer for us, right? Because you did it about the same time. Mm-hmm. I don't know if it was
we did
one
it about
led
a month apart.
Yeah.
Yeah. I definitely think that was when we really started to get some clarity on a lot of things. Ironically, again, 6-8 months or not even before March 2020. So thank goodness we started to do that, but we would both take a whole hour, which is a big commitment in a busy household, right? A whole hour in the morning before anything else. And we each had our own practices with that, and that's evolved over the years. But I know for both of us, it involved quiet listening and just opening your heart and listening, and journaling and praying and reading and all of that kind of stuff that just kind of is exactly what we're talking about tonight. That slow down, that connection, that reconnection to your heart, and reconnecting your heart and your head back together again. And that was how many years ago is that now? We're coming up on 6 years. Mm-hmm. And so we haven't stopped. And in fact, especially if we're in a hotel for a speaking engagement or something like that, we get up an hour earlier. It's pitch black in the hotel, whatever, and the coolest part about this, I guess, that I've never really thought much about is our kids do it now too. So they all have their own routines like that in the morning.
They're not all an hour.
Lucy has an hour. The other two have about a half hour. But that was not something we ever made them do. So that's pretty awesome, right? That they just kind of see the importance of it. And I can honestly tell you that I can look back on my parenting before I did that and then after I've done that, and I'm a totally different person because I've been in the classroom, I've been taught, and I'm not saying one person was bad and one person's good. It's more of just growth and perspective and maybe clarity on who I want to be and who I show up to be. And then also time to look back on yesterday and say, that didn't go well. So again, growth, mm-hmm. clarity, humility. Some of that happens in the quiet when you're retroactively, assessing the day before as well. So, your hour often is more than an hour. Yeah.
It's funny. I think about when I first started and it felt like, oh man, this is taking forever. I
have stuff to do.
I can't do it. Yeah, I got stuff to do. I got more important things to do.
Right.
And I think it's kind of interesting to think about how we started in August, which then when COVID hit, we had already had a habit established. So that was very fortuitous. And I've had prayer times and different things almost all of my adult life, but it's been this very specific practice and discipline. And I think I've done a lot of different meditation apps and different training, and there's different teachers, and they all say the same thing. It's you just got to start with 5 minutes, and you have to not judge yourself. You can't your thoughts are just like traffic, and it's you can notice them and then you can just let them go. And it's I think a lot of times I know for myself, I'm expecting that I should get some insight of nirvana within 2 minutes, and then if I don't, I'm I got more important stuff to do today. And I'll admit, even now, I'll have the hour, but I'm stuck. I notice I'm doing busy work, if there's a way to say it. So I'll read the Bible and I'll journal something, and then I'll read from this book, and then I'll do this, and it's basically I'm just doing all this stuff, and I don't actually take time to shut the hell up and just be quiet. And so I noticed that when I was in North Carolina, I was there for a couple days earlier this year, and I was okay, I've been doing a lot of journaling, I've been doing a lot of stuff, right? And I set my timer, I'm I am going to sit here for an hour being quiet. That's it. And I committed to it. And the beginning was hell. But I had some of the most amazing insights that got 30, 40, 50 minutes in. And then I went for a big long beach walk to kind of process it all. And I was I got to get back to this. I got to get back to the silent part the classroom of silence. It's not just doing worksheets and busy work in the classroom of silence.
Which is everyone's favorite part of learning.
Yeah, right. So just, again, all that to say is it's a process, and we have to be gentle with ourselves, and give ourselves grace, but it's also, man, it pays such big dividends, especially in the world that we're in now. So you did 4 little steps that I think you wanted to kind of like flesh out a little bit.
Yeah, and some of these are just really natural. Like, so I took the word slow, and kind of just to remember like the different parts of this to go for. But obviously the first one is stillness. So like, don't, I should say, try to find a spot where you're not going to be distracted to do other things. So I usually sit in the library. He sits in the studio. Someplace you could be still so that you're not like distracted by like, oh, I got to go check that over there. And I should go do this. And or maybe you need to put your phone somewhere else. Just set yourself up for success to be still. And
lack of movement from other people too.
Right.
And stillness of the environment.
Right. And so as still as you can hold your body, the better. And I'm saying this because I'm the person that's always like shaking my leg or like, as soon as I can get to a point where I can just be completely still, then all of a sudden the link up can start to happen. Okay. That heart and head link up. And then L for listen. And this is what we've been talking about the last few minutes, but, it's not, I think we've talked about this a lot, but like, obviously if you're quiet, you just kind of start to hear things, and I call them whispers. The whispers, and sometimes they're 2x4s because it's like, oh, duh, like, how have I not been thinking about this? This is what I need to think about right now. But the whispers are usually the most powerful, and usually for me, they come in little words or little thought processes, and they're really random, and they usually add up to be some pretty deep insights for myself. And then O is open. So this is the part that, gets a little vulnerable, because as soon as you start hearing some of these whispers, and maybe, if God's speaking to you and your soul is starting to connect to what, where you're being drawn, you have to open up to maybe some harder things, which is tricky. And sometimes you need help eventually getting through some of that, because it's hard to navigate maybe your history or maybe some relationships without some maybe mediation or help, a therapist or whatever it is, But that openness it kind of takes itself there, because it's like you're either going to stay closed up or you're going to be open, and hopefully that openness will help you find some healing. And then finally, I think wonder is a part of all of this, because for me, oftentimes it involves, like I said, like going for a walk and just kind of opening myself to different metaphors that teach me, whether it's like different flowers in different stages of blooming, or birds that are, acting in a certain way. I find like lessons in all of that. And that's like how I find wonder. I know I would imagine your art is where you're practicing a lot of the wonder that you experience. But I think everybody has their own version of that. So wherever it is that you find that delight, that wonder, that awe that maybe connects to a child like you, that's part of, like, I think that's the cherry on top, to be honest. Yeah. It kind of brings it all full circle.
Yeah. Well, and I think for me, the practice of being able to do this then makes it easier to drop in at other parts of the day. So like in a summer day when we jump in the hammock, and I can sit there and I can I don't need to be thinking about a million different things right now. Yeah. So hopefully this is helpful. One last little tidbit I want to share for anyone who is completely overwhelmed about the idea of like, there's no way I can sit still or meditate or whatever. Like I can't, this seems like an hour seems ridiculous. Like I get it. So I heard a guy one time talk about a way to like build a habit. His name was Leo Babauta, and he said what you need to do, let's say for like if you want to do push-ups, he said just commit to something that's like stupidly dumb and easy. Like it's almost impossible to not do. So in his case, do one push-up. That's it, just one. And like He said the important thing is that you don't do 2. You literally just do 1. And you're like, well, that was dumb. Like, that was easy. I could have done 7. And it's like, nope, 1. That's it. Like, because and then do that again the next day. Just 1. So in this case, commit to this week. Say, I'm going to sit for 1 minute. 1 minute. That's it. And then I'm turning the timer, and then I'm going to go on with my day. Because what you're doing is, the first thing you need to do is you need to set the habit. You need to set the habit. And then the next week, you can go 2 minutes. All right? I think that's a lot of we want the instant results, and then we die out because it's impossible. We can't do an hour. It's ridiculous. So just do a minute. Do 5 minutes. If 5 minutes is easy for you, start there. And don't let yourself go beyond it. That's the key. You're not allowed to go beyond that for the first couple days or the first week. So hopefully that might be something that will get you started. But again, if you are feeling like you just can't keep up on life, like it's just too busy, I've heard I should have done a little research on this, but I'm just thinking of like someone like Mother Teresa said something to the effect of like how much time she would pray, and then if she had too much stuff to do, she would actually then spend more time praying. Because the more, it's sort of like the Abraham Lincoln, like if I need to cut down a tree, I'll spend 90% of the time sharpening the axe, right? There's just something about taking that time that feels very counterintuitive. Like if I have a lot of stuff to do today, I cannot spend a half hour. I cannot tell you how many times I've done that. And then in that half hour or that hour, I think I don't need to do this thing today. Or I could ask someone for help and that would totally take that off my plate. Or like a different way of tackling this challenge that then made that hour job into a 20-minute job. It's amazing how that works, you guys, I swear. So sometimes the answer to the over busyness, we say we want more time, but what we really need is more silence. So hopefully that is helpful.